Hey, this is AltBrax. Today I'm going to show you how I make glitch drums using various microedit techniques and abusing Ableton's built-in time stretching algorithms. So let's get into it. Okay, so let's get started here. First I'm going to show you the type of drum loops that we're going to be coming up with. Obviously it's not going to sound exactly like this. This is just something I put together today. So here's how it sounds. So there's also a couple other things in here, so we can mute those and you can hear just how the drums sound. So I added a sub, and then this kind of glitchy thing. So we'll mute that too. So this is just the drums. So getting these kind of really glitchy drum loops together, it's a really iterative process. So the micro edits don't just start with, you bounce your drum loop out and then just start micro editing from there. We're actually going to start with the percussion layer that we're going to be using. So there's a few things that you're going to need. Obviously a kick, a snare, and then some sort of Foley loop, or you can work from hats, kind of whatever you like, really. I'm gonna pick out a kick here to get started. I prefer to make my own kicks and snares, so this whole project is kind of building out a bunch of loops that I'm doing for my sample pack here. So all the kicks and snares in here, stuff that I made. So we'll pick something that I haven't used. And then we can pick a snare. If you haven't watched my snare tutorial, I'll leave a link in the description. All of these snares were made using the same patch and just different processing. So I'm gonna go with this one. So this is just kind of a Foley snare I made. I don't actually want the lead up to it, so we'll just get rid of that. Cool, I'm going to shorten it up. So we're going to start by making kind of a basic kick and snare pattern. The kick and snare are going to kind of keep everything anchored so that all of the little glitchy percussion that sits in between these hits, it's going to obviously make a cohesive rhythm, but the kick and snare just kind of, keep everything anchored. So we're going to start by making just a 1-bar pattern, and then we'll kind of duplicate that into a 2-bar kick and snare pattern, and then just build upon that. I'm working at 110 BPM. Obviously you can work at whatever tempo you want. Cool, and then we can just kind of duplicate your first bar. So before we start adding in our percussion, we're going to want to kind of add some variation to the second half here, because this is kind of boring. I don't know, something like that works. Just whatever, whatever works at the tempo you're working at. I mean, this is kind of a glitch hop tempo, so it's a pretty standard, like, sort of funky glitch hop beat. I'm gonna nudge this kick actually. Okay, cool. So now we can start looking for some sounds that will work well for a really glitchy percussion layer. So I like to use kind of granular foley stuff. I've made a ton of samples here for my sample pack. I'm actually going to do a video probably pretty soon. Maybe probably not the next video. It's a pretty long process, but I'll go through how I make this kind of stuff. So you want to start with something that has a lot of transients in it. When you're micro editing, you can pretty much make anything work, but it's a lot easier if you start with something that sounds good and kind of fits what you're looking for. So we can use this one. And then we'll add that one. So you want to make sure that you've got warping enabled on both of these samples, or however many samples you want to work with. It'll just save you a lot of time later when you slice these up, because if you slice all of these and warping's off, and you got to go to each little sample and turn it back on. So this whole process is really trial and error. I'll go over each of the techniques that I use, but yeah. So I'm gonna start slicing things up, and then I'll kind of explain what I'm doing as I'm going. So this is a pretty cool hit. I might just leave this section just the way it is, because we want to fill in all the gaps between the kick and the snare hits here. Yeah. So I usually start by kind of going through here and finding little bits that I like, and then I'll just hit Command E to kind of break them out and then move them wherever. I probably want to put some stuff in here. When you're slicing this kind of stuff up, go in and just right click and change your grid. You don't want to be on like 16th notes, because it's going to make it a pain in the ass. You won't be able to get as granular with it. So I just usually leave it on one of the adaptive grids, either narrow or narrowest. And we're just going to take these little slices and try and kind of build a rhythm out of it. I usually like to, loop one small section at a time and just go through. So let's get into why I have warping on. This is kind of the main thing that gets us the glitchy sounds that we're after. It's just a lot of time stretching and abusing Ableton's warping algorithms. So if you go into any little clip, you can hit the drop down under warp here, and you can see all the algorithms that are available. Beats is pretty self-explanatory. It works best on rhythmic stuff because it tries to maintain the timing more. Complex Pro and complex are good for melodic things, because it maintains the pitch when you're time stretching. I can't really tell you which algorithm is going to sound best, because it's all context depending, and the whole point of this is to kind of abuse these algorithms and use them in ways that they're not really meant to be used. So a lot of the artifacting that you might not want if you use beats on a melodic sample, if you're trying to make it all glitchy and really mangle it, then beats might actually work and do exactly what you want it to do. So I'm going to take this little bit and we're going to hold shift, and if you drag it out, you can time stretch. There's a limit here, but if you hit Control J after to create a new sample, you can just keep going with it. But I'm just going to stretch it to here. Okay, so we've stretched this out a bit, and this is just kind of how the Beats algorithm sounds. It's pretty clicky. So you can change the algorithm after you've stretched a sample, and then just kind of... so it's really hot today, and I don't know that my M1 MacBook Air can handle this heat right now. I mean, the CPU throttling and crapping out does sound kind of cool. It's not supposed to sound like this. I think it might be okay now, maybe. So the whole point here is, as you stretch some of this stuff out and you go through these algorithms, it just takes practice kind of figuring out what each of these does and how it sounds. I can't really just tell you which one to use because it's going to depend on the input and what you're trying to achieve with it. But if we use Complex Pro, you get like a really stretched out artifacty or stretched out sound that's kind of full of artifacts. And I don't know, in this spot, I think it kind of works. So as I'm doing this, I just kind of, play sections over and over and tweak these samples until you get something that you like. To give you an example, if you change this to texture, it kind of granulizes it, so you can, adjust the grain size and add flux, which I think is just distorting it. And then as you adjust the grain size, you're going to get more or less repeats within the audio. You can't automate this parameter, which is kind of annoying. But what I like to do is sometimes I'll just create a separate track here, just a resampling track. And I'll set this kind of where I want it to start. And then just record and just drag this up however much I want, whatever I think sounds good, so that it kind of evolves and the repeats increase over time. Let's try that again. I have to solo this. And then if you don't like the outcome, you can just record again. 'Cause I do not like that. Cool. So So then you can just cut out the part that you want. I don't want this. Just drag it back up. And then I'll kind of go through some of the parts that I like and then stretch them out. Change the algorithms. Like I said, it's a lot of experimenting. So once we have kind of one bar sounding pretty decent, then you can work on the second bar and start slicing this up, copy bits over from here and kind of mangle them. One benefit to using the Complex Pro is that you can alter the pitch. So a lot of times I'll go into the envelopes. If you choose transposition and then draw mode, you can kind of just draw crazy stuff in here. And it just really messes up the sound, which is what we want to do. Oh, my computer is fucking up again. Look at that. So we might want to add some more stuff in here, obviously. The second bar doesn't sound that great yet. I like this part, but I might just take this and add a fade to it. Just so it leads into that snare a bit more cleanly. I don't really like this at all, so it can go away. So kind of go through and find little transient hits so we can reuse them in other areas here. You're basically just going through time stretching things, playing with the different algorithms, and slicing and rearranging things until you get a rhythm that you like. We'll end up doing some more kind of extreme things when we resample this full loop after. But for this first iteration, all we're trying to do is slice this up, time stretch it a bit until we get a rhythm that we're happy with. So under the BPM, you can just drag this and change how much you're time stretching. Another helpful thing is if you hold Shift and Option on a Mac anyways, I think it's Shift Alt on PC, you can just scrub through this whole file. So I don't know, if I don't like that part, maybe I like this better. I don't, but it's a possibility. Wow, sorry guys, my computer is really shitting the bed. Sorry if the editing in this video is really choppy. My computer keeps throttling and I'm probably gonna have to cut a lot of stuff out. But anyways, once you're happy with a couple, or one bar actually, this is still just one bar. Anyways, once you're happy with like one bar of this, if you just select everything, hit Control J, duplicate it. So once you've duplicated it and joined all your little snips into one file, then we can focus on the second half of this little 2-bar loop here. And you can just start chopping everything up in here and creating a new rhythm out of it. Obviously our kick here is in a different position, so if we just listen to this, wow, I can't even listen to this right now. I'm just gonna finish slicing this up, the second half here, and then when we come back, we'll see how the full loop sounds. I'm just gonna continue using the same techniques I used in the other part, so just slicing out bits that I like, moving them around, time stretching them, messing with the different time stretching algorithms, and we'll see what I come up with. I'm not going to talk too much. We're just going to go through and create a variation on the first little glitchy percussion loop. I think I'm going to get rid of this. Wow, I really can't record this part, at least not today. So I'm just gonna finish mangling this, and then I'll just show you how it sounds. And then hopefully tomorrow when I finish recording this video, it won't be 36 degrees outside. Okay, so I've gone through and did a bunch of micro edits on this second half of this here. So you can see it's obviously quite a bit different from the first half. I reversed some sounds, time stretched some, got rid of some other ones. And this is what the whole thing sounds like. So that's the first micro edit session. Next, we're going to bounce this entire loop out. So I just have a resampling track set up here. I think I have an instance of slap on here. There it is. Just doing some processing, but we'll just bounce this out because next we will be taking the entire loop and micro editing that and turning it into a longer, much more fucked up loop. So let's bounce this. Cool. So that's what our loop sounds like now. Pretty cool. We're just going to duplicate this so we can work from a separate copy here. And ultimately, I want to make a 4-bar loop out of this. So we can start slicing this up. And then I'll just go through, do some more time stretching on little sections. When I'm resampling the entire drum loop, I like to kind of start with the first kick, and then I'll stretch that out or duplicate it and get some kind of repeat going off of the first beat. Yeah, so we will get started. Okay, so this is actually day 2 of recording this. I'm going to try and explain a little bit more as we go through this. Yesterday, I was having some pretty big issues with throttling, so hopefully the second part of this video goes a little bit better. So yeah, just a reminder, this is what we're starting with now. And so we're going to start slicing this up, time stretching bits and just further glitching it out. And then once we do these 2 bars here, we will just duplicate it and do some more until we've got a nice 4-bar loop. So in our first micro edit session, we kind of left the kick and the snare alone and just focused on the percussion. So as we're going through this, I'm going to do a lot more stretching and mangling to the snare hits and the kick hits so we can build out kind of a new rhythm here. So I'm just going to go ahead and start working on this, and you can just kind of follow along, and I'll try and explain things as I go if I do anything new that I haven't previously covered already. Obviously, if you leave this on beats, it's just going to repeat. You're going to get a bunch of little transients in it, but it's kind of nice to stretch the kick out sometimes and just put it on Complex Pro. If you want to kind of maintain somewhat maintain the transient of the kick, instead of just stretching the whole thing, you can cut just after the transient and just stretch this part out, and then we can kind of fade between them after. It did not work how I wanted it to. It's a lot of trial and error, so just bear with me. And sometimes I just go in and start messing with the transposition of the clip. You can get some interesting sounding stuff just by drawing in different shapes. So if you go to draw mode, you can just kind of do random shit. There's like another transient in there that I didn't want. It helps if you have just another audio track below here, so if you want to swap things around or use something else later, you can just drop it down. So I'm just kind of picking little bits and stretching them out and trying to fill in the gaps. So when you're doing step stuff, you want a finer grid. Otherwise it comes out sounding kind of weird. So I'm just pitching down the tail. Whoops. And then you kind of fade between these slices or crossfade between them. Get rid of pops and clicks and stuff and just make the transition a bit smoother. And we can do like a little kick roll here. I want to save this little bit for something. Cool. We're gonna swap this out, this little weird thing. Maybe we'll see what this sounds like. Whoops. And then we can just change up the end here. I like to have like the last bar be some kind of like really stretched out percussive thing. So we'll get rid of this kick. Just throw it here. So we can take this little, whoops, this little end piece here and just stretch it. That sounds kind of cool. And this is what our original 2 bars sounds like. Sounds a lot more glitchy. So now we can actually just take this loop here and just Control J just to join it into one audio file, duplicate it. We can move this over, maybe use it. And then we can start messing up the second half just to kind of add some variation to it. might not want this to play twice. So we will grab another kick. So I just kind of move stuff around a lot. Maybe we can take this and reverse it. Play with the different algorithms. So then the first snare is actually an eighth later. It just gives it a different groove. And we'll kind of fill out this gap. Actually, we'll maybe bump the kick forward a bit. Oh, this is a kick. I don't want that there. Sometimes if you get little bits that are too quiet or just don't sound like what you want, you can just scrub through until you find something cooler. So that's sounding pretty good. We're going to change up the next part here, or the second bar. I'll probably move the snare over too. Whoops. So when you start doing this stuff, it kind of moves. You end up moving stuff over in the grid, and eventually you need everything to resolve. So if you just keep bumping everything forward, it's gonna not resolve when it comes back around to the beginning. So we'll have to fix that. It is a lot of trial and error, so just you're gonna have to bear with me while I keep tweaking things, and hopefully you're learning how I'm doing this at the same time. This gets really messy, and it's actually really easy to start losing the rhythm, I guess. So now I'm just trying to make a interesting snare roll kind of thing, and just shortening it up as it goes. This might sound really bad. I don't think this works. So we're gonna move this back. So it's sounding a little bit better. I don't like this kick here though, so we're gonna move it. This last 2 bars sounds really fucky. So we're getting there, pretty close. Maybe we can put this in here. Alright, that's kind of cool. Now we got a little snare hit here that will lead into this weird roll thing. Yeah, there we go. That sounded good. So we want to change this end, and then I think we should be good. I don't like to have the same resolution when I'm kind of repeating the 2-bar section. I want lots of variety. We can try and mess with the pitch on this. We'll just switch this over to Complex Pro. And then we can screw around with this envelope if we want. Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. So I'm drawing this stuff in. I really don't know how it's going to sound. It's just a little bit random. And then you just kind of mess with it until it sounds good. I don't really like this snare either. So we'll go find a good snare. So there you go. That's it. That is our 4-bar loop. So normally if I was making a track, I'd probably take this, double it, maybe start adding in some sub, maybe some melodic elements that we can chop up, and just go from there. But this should give you a pretty good idea of how you can take, you know, something like this, which is already pretty glitchy because we did micro editing earlier on here. But you can turn it into something that's much more glitchy. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm probably going to do a kick tutorial next, so look out for that. And if you haven't checked out my snare tutorial yet, I will leave a link in the description. Thanks.